Hello, everyone, and welcome to my YouTube channel, Knowledge Before Next. My name is Alicia, and before we begin, I just wanted to reiterate a few things. First of which is that don't mind the music in the background. I'm just clearing some energy because in doing my research, I had to look up some very dark things that do not resonate with me. So I just wanted to cleanse my energy and calm myself down. So that's why the music on is in the background, so don't mind that. I also wanted you guys to consider liking and subscribing to my YouTube channel, sharing if you feel like this information could help somebody else who is interested in this topic, and also consider leaving a comment or any positive constructive criticism that I can use to make my YouTube videos better. I'm going to be rereading some of this information because my video cut out on me for some reason. Basically we're going over what the origins of tarot are today, and what tarot exactly is. We will also be going over, like who founded tarot, where it came from, what people thought tarot was, like, is it a secret code or not? Is it a religion or not? We will be going over briefly the dark side of tarot and what people use tarot for, specifically Aleister Crowley, which I do not subscribe to. His methods of using tarot as a practice do not resonate with me. That doesn't mean that anybody is a bad person for believing those things. I just believe that tarot should be used for the betterment of others and should not be used in the way that he's using them, just because I feel like it takes away from the divinity of the aspect of tarot instead of it being just something to make yourself grander than you ought to. But again, that's my personal opinion. Not knocking anybody who does follow his practices or beliefs. Again, as I said, I'm be going over that briefly just because I do not like him or what he subscribes to. So if you want to find out more information about Aleister Crowley and what he believes in and what he does considering tarot, I would suggest you go look it up online, order his books, and go on YouTube, because after today, unless it is absolutely necessary and needed, I will not be talking about him on my page ever again because I just do not subscribe to what he believes in, and it's just too dark for me to handle. I would encourage that you stay to the end of this video because you will be getting my personal opinions about tarot and what I believe it should be used for, and then a final clear-cut vision of what this channel is going to be used for, what my services are going to be used for. So yeah, stay tuned for that. I apologize in advance if this seems very quick. I've done about half of this video already, and I'm kind of trying to not to start over and take up too much of your time. So we're just going to jump right into it. And if I keep looking back and forth, it's just because I'm looking at notes. Alrighty, so the origins of tarot, by its general and literal definition, according to Merriam-Webster, tarot is any set of usually 78 playing cards that are used for fortune telling, or telling one's story via the use of playing cards. According to Wikipedia, which is not a necessarily reliable source, but it's a more liberal sense, for a lack of a better word, a more liberal source of information. So according to them, it's a form of cartomancy. I probably messed that word up, but basically it's a form of fortune telling using playing cards. But it's a form of fortune telling whereby practitioners use tarot cards or gaming cards to allegedly gain insight into the past, present, or future. So basically, to sum all of that up, basically tarot is the use of playing cards to tell somebody's fortune, whether it be in the past, present, or future tense. And that's fine. That's basically what it is. I find it pretty cool. Unfortunately, I don't have the original tarot deck that most people use, which would be the Arthur Edward Waite deck, which looks like this. This is a copy of his book, which is what I'm going to be primarily sourcing today. This was a gift to me by a friend. I don't know where she got it, but thank you, Tiffany, if you ever watch this, for giving me this book. But yeah, basically these are what the cards look like. Eventually I plan on getting this deck just because, you know, being a tarot reader, I think it would be wise and beneficial to get a traditional deck just to use, because I mean, it's traditional, it's a piece of history basically. So I will be getting that in the future. But yeah, tarot cards are basically, like they said, playing cards, which basically come with not wands, I'm sorry, that's what we use in traditional tarot, with clubs, hearts, diamonds, and spades. I have a deck of playing cards, but they're Guardians of the Galaxy ones, which will prove my point. I will probably show you maybe 1 or 2 cards because Marvel is not sponsoring this video. I hope they would sponsor a video, that'd be awesome. But I'm only going to show maybe 1 or 2 because I don't want to get copyright striked. But basically, this is what tarot is. It's basically a deck of playing cards, kind of like these, that basically tell pictures of what could be happening in the past, present, or future. And so both of these were clubs. I had the Ace of Clubs and the 3 of Clubs. But basically, yeah, that's one way you could use tarot cards. The other way is using something like this, the Light Seers Tarot deck, which I am very, very fond of using. They also don't have to be as serious as that or as serious as the Edward Waite. I also have these, and then again, I won't show any of the cards because that is sponsored by Disney, and they're not sponsoring this video either, so I don't want to get copyright striked for that either. But yeah, basically with those cards, like the Guardians of the Galaxy and the Nightmare Before Christmas deck, they're not to be taken as like, you know, like, I guess what I'm trying to say is that tarot cards can be used in any fashion. They can look like anything. You can make your own tarot cards. That's why tarot has expanded to the way it has been, because it's up to one's interpretation, as you will see in the study that I've at least done here. So depending on what your cards look like, it doesn't mean you're any less serious because they don't look traditional like this. Tarot in and of itself is of explorative practice, and it basically takes what resonates with you and helps others understand what it is about them that they need to understand, basically through that practice. So whether you resonate with Guardians of the Galaxy, whether you resonate with, I don't know, they have ones for anime, they have them in all sorts of stuff. If you resonate with Earth, there's tarot cards with that, for that. Like, basically, yeah, tarot cards don't have to be traditional in a sense. As long as you're trying to convey something that'll help somebody else, you can use any form of cards you want. And that's all I'm going to say about that. But yeah, tarot is just a deck of cards that you use to help people understand their past, present, and future in the best way possible. Which goes into my definition of tarot, which is one of many symbolic, tangible resources that helps the person connect with a higher power, source or entity in order to understand, change, or guide themselves or others through all walks of life. Which is, yeah, basically what I just said, an open-minded, symbolic way to connect to a higher source to help people along their journey throughout this life. So my next point today is going to be, where did tarot come from and how did it evolve into what it is today? So we're going to go way, way back to the 1440s and 1450s. Italy. And before I get into the origins of cards in that sense, I do want to briefly mention that although we have physical evidence that it originated in Italy, there are a lot of beliefs that it originated in Egypt, India, China, and other places. And I'm not saying that it's not true. We just don't have a lot of physical evidence of that fact. Again, when it comes to the Egyptian origin, Aleister Crowley has a lot more information about that aspect of things. And again, like I said, I'm only going to be covering like a very, very short, brief section of that. But if you want to learn more, like I said, there's resources here on YouTube, there's resources online, there's books you can order, books you can get from the library. But yeah, he's more of the expert on that theory of evolution when it comes to tarot, but I'm just going based off of physical evidence that we have today. So basically, given the cards that we found in the limited information that we found over the years, it is believed that tarot originated as a card game of tricks, which to my understanding is like playing jacks with cards. And if you are too young to understand what jacks is, I'm sorry, I don't have time to explain it here. Go look it up on the internet. But basically, it was a game of tricks that people played basically just to entertain themselves. And what was the most entertaining was not the game itself, but the pictures that were painted on the cards at the time. And during that time was a time of hierarchy. So basically, you had like the elites up here, and then you had like the lower class at the way bottom. But it kind of like bridged the gap in a sense of entertainment, because anybody can play it. The only thing that was kind of limited in the lower classes was your ability to customize your cards, which usually depicted like families of the elite and all this stuff. And in their game of like trumps, as it were, in tricks, basically, like if you did like Dungeons and Dragons or games of strategy, you have trump cards that basically beat all the other cards, like kings, queens, jacks, and aces and stuff like that in regular playing cards. You know, a lot of people got to customize those things. And during those times, it is believed that the lower class, in order to kind of like convey what they were going through and kind of like talk about mini revolutions and all this other stuff going on in lower classes without the elites knowing or catching wind of it, they started to create their own cards to kind of send subliminal messages throughout different parts of places and convey different messages without the awareness of the elites, by using said cards, which I find so fascinating. It was kind of like its own secret language, which is awesome. But it wasn't until 1909 when Arthur Waite and Pamela Coleman Smith developed an interest in finding the duality of art in like its original meaning and stuff like that. So that's where we get traditional tarot from. Like basically after that movement in the 1440s up until 1909, there wasn't any talk of spirituality being something of something associated with the cards. It was basically just like anybody's way of kind of like either entertaining themselves or talking with others. There was no spiritual tie to it until later. Now, Arthur Waite was a British poet and a devoted studier, teacher, and scholar of mysticism, which basically is a belief that everything has duality, like everything has another meaning to it. So kind of like subliminal messaging. He believed that everything in life had a dual or hidden purpose, and that it was our job to seek that out. Through his mystic experiments at the time and in his studies, he found that many people liked the idea of supernatural power being accessible to all, but he found that most people used it for selfish gain or to impress others by deceptive means. Meaning that when he started talking about these things and talking and figuring out, like the duality of the world and what hid beneath the surface, a lot of people he found and that he talked to like to use that knowledge, but to like bring themselves up in a way that would be very demeaning to other people. And that's not what he was using those studies for. He was using those studies to be like, yo, hey, we have this newfound information that comes from a source that we don't yet understand. Why don't we use that to better everyone instead of like put other people down, which a lot of people disagreed with and others agreed with. But during those days in the 1900s, that was outlawed because you had this hierarchy system of, the elites and stuff. It's been around for ages and I still believe it's around today. But off of that subject, basically, he just wanted the knowledge to be spread in a good way and not in a bad way. It was his goal to understand who and what the divine was and how we can learn from it, and its most simplest forms throughout its symbolism. This idea was based on his experience and studies through his involvement with the Isis-Urana Lodge of the Golden Dawn, which Aleister Crowley again founded. It's in his books and in some of his writings that although he was fascinated by Aleister Crowley's deep understanding and like study of the divine and what it implicated, he like me wasn't all down with all of his practices, so he eventually left the order and created his own, which was the sect of the Rosy Cross, I believe. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe that's what that is. And during his studies of other foreign belief systems and practices, he discovered that the Albigenese sects of 1905 were more similar to those of origin in the 1440s and 1450s than of the original thought origins of Egypt, India, and China, which I did some previous deep diving into the Albigenese sects of 1095. It's amazing, the symbolism of all this other stuff, and it makes more sense, which is why I wish I had the original tarot deck so I can show you. But he found that the 1440s and 1450s decks really matched more of the beliefs of the Albigenese sects instead of, and that's SECTS for those who are wondering what I'm saying. It's not the other word, but he found that it closely related to those beliefs instead of those of what we originally thought, which I found fascinating. Again, I don't have time to do a deep dive, but if you want me to go deeper into that, comment below and then I'll get a video started on that. But he never, during his studies though, he never really had a side where it was well, do you believe that the earth is concrete, belief systems are concrete in this black and white, everything's got to be a specific way to look at things, or do you believe that everything's abstract? He basically believed that everything was abstract and that we should discover those things, but he also, as a mystic philosopher and scientist, I believe, via the fact that some of his experiments were more scientific in a way than mystic, he also believed that yes, there are certain rules to things that we need to follow, but there's also duality in those rules. So he never really had a concrete answer of what side he was on. He was just on the side of what was considered right and what was moral, and he also was on the side of discovery. So yeah, very liberal in that sense. Yeah, he also, again, like I said, I want to reiterate that basically, when it all comes down to it, in a summary of all of his works and studies, that knowledge in and of itself, not just in spirituality, but in anything else, should be used to better a society or better people and better the world, rather than take it down and belittle others. Okay, so now we're going to get into the dark origins of tarot and its occultic involvement with Aleister Crowley. Forgive me if I brush through this, but I just do not like him in this subject, so we're just going to quickly go briefly through this. But basically, when people think of dark origins of tarot, and when people really deem tarot as a very evilistic and often termed satanic form of practice, they think of Aleister Crowley, but that's because he revolutionized tarot in a way that I could have never imagined, and he was known for that, and he liked that about himself. But he took the practices of tarot and spirituality to a very, very dark place throughout his studies, using some very, very, I believe, inhumane ways to practice and gain knowledge. Again, I'm not going to go into that because although my content is for adults and stuff like that, I don't like talking about it. But yeah, like I said, do your own personal research on that. But basically, yeah, he just took tarot and basically opened the other world of that. And I can say this. Everything in this world has a good side and a bad side, a dark and a light, if you will, like a black and a white side, and not in a political sense, but you have one way to go about things and another way to go about things is what I'm trying to say. And it's just, he decided to go and look into a different way of practicing things. And again, if you subscribe to his beliefs, I'm not knocking on you. Just for me personally, I do not agree with it, just because it's a lot, and it just doesn't agree with what I believe. So yeah, but basically he was a revolutionary in what he practiced and what he did. And yeah, I'm just gonna leave it at that. He was a very, very interesting man. And his origins of why he did what he did, I can see to a certain extent was valid. I don't think it justified some of the stuff that he did, but I mean, you know, to each his own. I just don't agree with it. But off of that subject, because I just don't like talking about him, and hopefully I don't have to talk about him again. But we're going to go on into modern spirituality and how it evolved into it today. So basically from 1909 to about the 1960s and 70s, we were just kind of breaking out into our own spiritual sects. So like this is where you get like Wicca from, and then all your kitchen witches and all this other stuff. And it's not like it's never been there, but everybody in their own way was trying to expand the knowledge of spirituality and tarot and the earth and the divine and what all that meant. That didn't mean a lot of it was peaceful at the time. We didn't really reach that into the 70s, which is where we get the very well-known hippie movement from the 70s. A lot of people think it's about like, you know, like marijuana and, you know, like the use of narcotics and, you know, in a lack of a better term, blind love, but it was more than that. It was more like kind of what we're going through today, like an awakening of like, yo, we kind of need to like come together, people, and stop bringing people down. We need to raise people up because it's not doing good for us. All this war, all this death, all this division and stuff like that. you know, it's bound to happen, but at the scale it's happening, it's not okay. We need to do something. And in the 70s, at least here in America, that is what we at least tried to do. We tried to stop wars. We tried to stop all this hate and promote love and stuff to, you know, raise the vibration of the earth. And I believe the more good we put into the earth, the more the earth will recover. But yeah, it wasn't without its struggle. Again, if you want me to do a deeper dive into any of the subjects we covered, please let me know, because doing more research, you know, there's a lot of stuff that you can dive into, and it's so complex. You can't just get it all in one video. So if you want any new information about what I just uncovered here, please let me know, and I'll get right on that as soon as possible. But yeah, tarot didn't get into like this modern spiritual movement until the 1970s and 80s. It was widely accepted by that point because we did a lot of fighting during the early 1900s, like I said, from 1909 to the 1960s. Of course, we've had a lot of other issues pop up and stuff too, but yeah, tarot had found its way into the hearts of many people, and since then it's been kind of like more open and accepted to practice, because it used to be a secret thing to practice for a long time, when it became spiritual doctrine because of all the other doctrines, you know. I need to stop hitting this microphone. Goodness gracious. I have a microphone here, and it's very sensitive, so if I bump it, that's what you're hearing. But yeah, basically it kind of took off in the 70s and the 80s, and you know, over time it kind of got repressed a little bit, at least in the Western world, given all the stuff that we've been through. But now I'm seeing it starting to have an incline and starting to come back up into like this positive and more open area of practice, which I'm so happy about. But yeah, that's basically what tarot is. Tarot basically was a movement of deep understanding, and maybe like basically just challenging beliefs. Like, yo, if everything, like, there has to be more to this, basically, is what it is the basic summary. Is like, yo, like, basically this is what tarot is. It's a open, it's a symbolic and open way of trying to challenge and figure out what the world is like through tangible means, because, you know, it's kind of taking abstract thought and putting it to something we can see, touch, feel, and resonate with. So yeah, my conclusion and my beliefs in all of this, basically, like I said before, tarot should be used as something you could help people with, help with the vibration of the earth, a tool that we can physically use to better understand things, and then develop a connection with the divine. And when I mean divine, it's whatever the divine is to you, because growing up, I thought the divine was just one entity. It was just this person in a box, so to speak. He was this way all the time, and you know, like in my life, he was sort of like a dictator or like an oppressor. It was like, you know, like the fearful version of Santa Claus, basically. He sees you when you're sleeping. He knows whether you're awake. He knows whether you've been bad or good. So you better be good, or like good stuff won't happen to you. Like, it was a very scary thing. And so now, like, connecting to the divine, which could be God, source, Gaia in some things. Some people believe the source is self. I don't believe that's quite true, because, at least in my personal opinion, myself is messed up. So I wouldn't want it to be the source of anything, because, yeah, I'm still trying to figure me out in some aspects. So I don't think, and maybe that's a very shallow sense of what self being source is, because also in spirituality, you believe that you are source because you come from source. I believe we are a vessel, not like source itself. And I'll go deeper into that again in another video. Like, breaking this down has broken down a lot of things that we can cover. But yeah, basically, I just believe that tarot is and should be used for the betterment of people. Not to kind of flaunt on people and make people think that you're better than. I've been seeing that trend a lot here lately on the internet. It's not a manipulative tool to make people like you, to make people give you money, to make people, I don't know. It's not something trendy, I don't think. Like, I know it's a trend, and like trends, it'll die out eventually, but I take tarot very seriously. Like, these are people's lives in the balance. It's not something you just use to get for views. And it's not something to play around with, because this stuff is serious. It has serious implications. But also, in the duality of that, people are like, it's true. It's what you make of it. So if you want tarot to kind of be just something you do for fun, you can do that. But tapping into gifts like that and using them so recklessly, for lack of a better term, is not okay. Like, we've been given a gift of knowledge, and we have tools to obtain that knowledge, and I would think it's everybody's responsibility to be like, yo, like, if we've been given this gift, which is free, it doesn't cost anything, to receive this gift. It may cost to work the gift, but I'm like, it's a free gift given to us, so why don't we use it for the betterment of everybody else and not just for selfish gain? That's my take on tarot. And yeah, I think that's pretty much it. I'm hoping to go and deep dive a little bit more into some of these topics. I think my next video is going to be on the different types of, like, a little bit more about like different cards. Like, I have tarot cards and I also have oracle cards, so I think I'll go into the different types of cards you can use, what's the difference between oracle and tarot cards, and then if my video isn't too long, we'll get into the different types of spreads, which you can kind of sort of see up here. I have like 3 different spreads up here, which are like the main spreads you can use, so we can go over that if the video won't be too long. But yeah, thank you guys so much for watching. If you stayed tuned to the end of this video, consider liking, sharing, subscribing, and commenting. And yeah, I cannot wait to continue to teach you guys what I know, and I'll catch you guys in the next video.